Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I got a quick one here. Got a Ford Mustang 1995 rear diff, cover leaking. You can see all the oil at the bottom. And if you take a look at the ground here, got a couple of drips. So we're gonna stop that. First thing we're gonna do is get this cover off. So I'm gonna take all the bolts off. I'll leave these two in, this one here, this one here. I'll back them off just a little bit before I pry so that when the cover finally pops off or you're gonna pry it off, it doesn't just come at you and fall on the ground. So we got all the bolts out except for these two. 1, 2. I have these backed out, probably about a half an inch. This brake line support I just flipped up out of the way. You want to save that obviously. And then this bolt right here had the ID tag on it. You want to save these too. I mean, this tells me right here it's a 7.5 inch ring gear, so I'll know what gasket to buy. If I use gasket, I'm probably gonna use Right Stuff. I had better luck with just using Right Stuff as a gasket maker instead of actually using the gasket, but we'll see. So I'm gonna take a pry bar, put it behind here, start to crack it, and see how much fluid's left in this guy. Yeah, as you can see, those two bolts, I have the cover pushed back on the head of the bolts, allowing it to drain back. So I don't have to worry about dropping it on the ground or actually too much fluid coming out. I could back that bolt out some more to get some more flow, but that's pretty good. All right, so we got this rear cover off. Before we clean up this sealant surface here, we just want to do a good inspection, make sure all these gears look good, we don't see any issues. Now's the time to take a peek. So I've already gone ahead and done this, but your pinion gears in the back, it's down there. These are your spider gears. There's 4 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this is your ring gear. You want to check the teeth of all these gears, make sure there's none of the teeth are chipped. You don't see any shavings in here. Usually when there's damage in the rear end, it'll pick it up and you'll have a good chunk of tooth missing, if not a few teeth, because it'll keep picking them up and grinding them in there. So you'll see issues pretty quickly. And another thing you want to do, which I did, is you want to put your hand down in the oil with your gloves on and feel around. Also push this fluid out to see if there's any metal chunks at the bottom of this pumpkin, bottom of this rear diff. But everything looks good. So I'm ready to start cleaning up that sealant surface. All right, so we got this side all cleaned up. As you can see, I use a paper towel. I like to really cover that ring gear. So when you're cleaning up top, all that debris will just fall on the paper towel and drop down. I used a 3M, I called Rolox sanding pads. This is the red medium grit. It's the same thing as a 3M pad. I like using these on iron steel. Aluminum, I'd use a sanding block and a dull scraper. But for this, you can get away with the 3M Rolox. Get this nice and clean. So I'll hit this with some brake clean. This side will be done. The cover, I'll scrape off the rest of the RTV and hit that with brake clean. All right, so this side's nice and clean, ready to accept the cover. I cleaned it up one last time, hit it with brake clean, made sure the surface was really clean so that the Right Stuff would stick to it. Same thing with the cover. I cleaned this up really well. And if you look right here, you can see a little bit of corrosion. That was actually a piece of old gasket, and this was actually siliconed on. So from the factory, maybe it had the gasket and they didn't get it all off. There was one little piece of paper gasket right there, and this is the bottom. It's probably why it was leaking to begin with. So I scraped that off, got it all down nice and bare, cleaned it up really well. Both sides you want to clean up really well so that if it does develop a leak, you'll be able to pinpoint it right away and know where it's coming from. But this is good to go. I'm going to add some Right Stuff. I'm going to go around all the bolt holes, go all the way around this cover, let it sit for about a minute or two, and then install it. All right, so I got the Right Stuff on. This is it right here. When I say the Right Stuff, that's actually what it's called, 1 minute gasket maker. I've just had a ton of success with this. I've never had a leak after using this stuff right here. With that said, this thing's going to leak like a sieve. But when I apply this, I go around the bolt holes, I mean, just continue in one single pass if you can. And you don't want to put it on too heavy. To be honest, it's a little bit heavier than I'd like to see. It's just I used this for an oil pan with a thicker base before, so that hole's cut a little bit bigger. But the rule of thumb is whatever squeezes out that you're seeing visually from the surface is the same thing as squeezing in. So something to think of. If globs of silicone come out while you're torquing this thing down, then guess what? There's globs going in too. So just something to think of. But I think we'll be all right with this. So I'm going to reverse the process. I'm going to install this, get the bolts on, torque them down, and then I'll be able to fill it. All right, so I got this cover torqued down to 35 foot-pounds. You want to go in a crisscross pattern like you do with anything you're torquing down, whether it's a head or lug nuts. So the next thing I got to do is fill it. So every diff about halfway up, roughly, you'll see a plug. It's not a drain plug, that's the fill plug. And we're going to fill this until it comes back out of that hole. So you'll top it all the way off. You'll add a bunch more, it'll drain out. And then you want to wait till it actually does drain out and then put the plug in. You don't want to just throw the plug in and overfill it. So I'm going to do that next. I've already loosened this up so I can take this plug out. And you'll also notice there's a magnet at the bottom of it. I already did clean that. There was hardly any material on it. I do expect to see some material from the limited slip or just from the gears themselves meshing. So there was a tiny bit of material on there, but nothing big. So we're good to go. So I'm gonna grab some gear oil and top this rear end off. All right, so we got our new gear oil in. Like I said, I pumped it in until it started coming out, and it's just getting down to a drip, so now I can put that plug back in. I'll put some pipe dope on the plug. Something to think of, here's the bottle pump that I use. It's adjustable. This one's set up for this type of bottle and says all it stays in. So this bottle right here, this fluid, I haven't used it in forever. It's just really to hold the bottle pump now. These things are super cheap. I didn't think it was gonna last as long as it has. I've put dozens of bottles through this pump, so makes life a lot easier. It takes a little bit to pump it in, but it's nice and clean, doesn't make a mess. You're not trying to fight getting the bottle high enough to pour it in and squeeze the bottle in. Then actually the hose pops off and it actually does make a mess. So it's the way to go, get a bottle pump. So now I'm gonna take that plug, I'll put some pipe dope on it. The pipe thread dope I use that I swear by is this stuff right here, Loctite 567 thread sealant. It doesn't really harden, so it's pretty pliable. So when you tighten it up, if you're not getting the full turn you need on it, it doesn't matter, it'll still seal. And then when you're trying to break the fitting after, it's easier to come out. So I've used this stuff for a very long time and I've had very good luck with it. All right, so that's it, guys. I got the plug in. You can see the sealant. You can wipe all that off. I hit the housing itself with a bunch of brake clean. It's drying right now. You want that nice and dry so you can find a leak right away. So that's still drying. And then same thing in the back, this back cover. You want to start checking for leaks now that you got fluid in it. I'm going to take it for a ride, heat cycle it, and then I'll put it back up in the air and see if I get any drips. But I think we're going to be good. This doesn't need, one thing you want to do is check the specs. So it's not one size fits all for fluid. There's some fluids that you can't use synthetic. There's some that you can use synthetic. There's some that you have to add a friction modifier, limited slip if you have a posi rear end. So just make sure you look up your specs before you even start this, because you might have to order what you need anyway. Ford specifically, most of the time you got to order what you need. But I hope this video helps. Think about subscribing, that'd be great. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. I'll see you in the next one.